Hello, everyone. My guests today are Tom and Bob. Let's start with Tom. He's the founder and CEO of a company called Skyword, the leading content marketing technology and services company. The company liberates brands from ineffective marketing practices and inspires them to create deeper connections with their audiences through storytelling. That's where Bob comes in. Bob McGee is an award-winning story authority and best-selling author. Tom then also leads Storynomics seminars. Together, they instruct senior executives and marketing professionals on how to apply storytelling structure to their business in order to drive revenue, margins, and brand loyalty. Tom, Bob, are you guys ready to take us to the top?
Absolutely.
All right. So let's do this. So, Tom, you lead Skyworld. Tell us real quick what the company does and what your revenue model is, and then we'll shift over to Bob.
Sure, Nathan. We help companies like IBM, MasterCard, Samsung transform their primary marketing approach from ad-centric to story-centric. That is, instead of interrupting their customers with ads that annoy them or might be off-putting, they learn to tell stories that their customers actually seek out because they are either informational or entertaining. And to become better storytellers, we reached out and wanted to partner with the most recognized guy in the world at that craft, Robert McKee.
And Bob, tell us more about your work for those that are not familiar.
Well, I give huge 3 and 4 day seminars, as Tom was saying, around America and all over the world. And I discovered that many people were coming to these seminars not because they were playwrights or screenwriters or novelists, but because they were business people. And they were trying to master the art of storytelling for their marketing. And but they were willing to sit for 3 or 4 days from 9 o'clock in the morning to 7, 8 o'clock at night, trying to just get the essence of it.
Yeah, Bob, it's because you're a good-looking guy.
So, yeah. All right. So I thought, well, they need their own seminar, and so. And I need to know more about business and exactly what marketing entails. And so Tom had been a student of mine at Harvard years ago, and so we met and we teamed up. And he brings the business mastery to it, and I try to help make it clear what a story is exactly, and how to use it in business. And between the two of us,
so you wrote this together, Bob.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we co-authored, and between the two of us, then we think we've created a book that makes storytelling an efficient, purposeful action for marketers, rather than the sort of vague, indirect work that this notion of stories is very unclear for people.
Yep.
And so we wanted to create a playbook for marketers. So we broke story down into 8 clear, powerful steps, which I think no one else has ever done.
Wait, Bob, hold that. That's an open loop. I want people to stick around. So you're going to hold on for some of these steps. Bob's going to tease in a second. But first, Tom, I don't want to lose my audience here on this. And the reason I bring that up is the following. They are really sophisticated private equity, M&A, SaaS founders, and they will naturally be skeptical going, why is Nathan having a book author on the show? Does this guy have a legit business, or is he just writing a book? Brag about yourself for a second. Tell me about the company, and then explain rationally why the hell do you spend your time to write a book where you just lose a lot of money and takes a lot of time and energy?
A lot more time and energy than I ever expected, Nathan. So Skyword is a SaaS plus services company. We work with about 150 large brands, mostly US based. And our clients use our platform on a subscription basis to author most of their content for digital.
Okay.
That's feeding their web, social channels, and email channels. And then they will engage a creative pool of thousands of freelance creatives that we make available to them if they don't have the in-house talent to tell those stories. And then
these are writers, Tom, is that right?
Writers, videographers, photographers. They can tell really any type of story they'd like.
Got it.
And then we provide editorial and production assistance if they don't have that in-house as well.
So trailing 12 months, what percentage of revenue is professional services versus pure SaaS, predictable SaaS?
It's about 2/3 SaaS, about 1/3 services.
Okay, that's healthy. And then can you give me a general sense of size, like north or south of 10 million bucks, 5 million bucks? Where are you generally?
Sure. So we just raised a $25 million growth equity round from Row Capital.
Okay.
And closed, we announced that last month, closed it just at the end of December. And we are approaching 20 million in ARR.
Okay. And does that 20 million though also include the one-time professional services, or that's on top of the 20 million?
The services are not one time, they're subscription as well. So our clients pay for those on an annual subscription basis, and it does include that number.
Do you see the same churn economics with the professional services folks? They're sticky just like the SaaS play?
They are. And in fact, the services in many cases are an ante, if you will, into the game. Because if you think about marketing traditionally, marketers used to outsource their creative function.
Yep.
So if you go to a marketing department today, they don't know how to tell stories. They don't have either the operational infrastructure or the know-how to do that at scale successfully and consistently over time.
Yep.
So by giving them not just the platform that they need, but the talent access and the expertise, we can help make that transformation from ad to story-centric marketing easier and more successful.
I love it. So the book is a way. It's another marketing channel. Congratulations, by the way, on linking up with the publisher to do that. I get it. It's helpful. Hold the book up real quick so everyone can see it. What's the title?
Storynomics. It goes on sale on the 20th of March on all major booksellers.
Good. And this will be out by then. So folks, you can go buy it now. But let me hit them hard first before you decide to buy or not. Bob, I have a question for you. You ready for this? So I'm a big believer. When I look at, I'm going to be selfish here for a second. When I look at my general life and marketing that has worked well for me, I've tried the whole tell a story in a long form sales page and tested that. I've also tried leaking an LOI to buy success for $5 million to Business Insider to actually make my life a story with a lot of volatility that people can't help but stop watching. The latter did way better than me trying to crank out a long form sales page story. What is the future?
Well, first of all, your first choice was this long form. You probably didn't tell a very good story.
You're probably right.
Just because you think you're telling a story doesn't mean that you are. On the other hand, the story that you told about your life is very dynamic, and I'm sure that it was very gripping and well told and had a powerful ending, and that's why it worked. So when somebody says to me, I told a story and it didn't work, my question is, really, did you tell a story? Mm-hmm. I mean, you think you did, but that doesn't mean you did, because most people in business don't know the difference between a narrative and a story.
What's the difference
what
in a sense?
What you probably told was a narrative,
not
a story. It was and then, and then, and then, and then. What you told the second time was in fact a story, mm-hmm. and that's why it worked.
So here's where I start blending these things. When that thing with Success Magazine worked so well, so I literally leaked an LOI with the contract and everything to Business Insider. They ran it. I didn't end up doing the deal for Success, but it created a perception in people's brains. They said, wow, Nathan has the money to do this deal. That's great. But also Success Magazine, people started reaching out to me going, we just were fired. We'd love to join you. And then the story propagated itself. You're seeing this right now in the Trump White House where the stories are happening so quickly, nobody can even seem to keep up. So my question to you is, if people want to create stories of their life and keep people in their life story, do they create the storylines, or do they have to look back and tell the story in the past?
Well, your audience are entrepreneurs, right?
Mostly, yeah. Private equity, M&A, CEOs.
An entrepreneur is somebody with a story. An entrepreneur doesn't have a product yet or a service yet. They're going out trying to raise money so that they can build that product or offer that service. And so they have to get people to see it from their point of view and be willing to part with their money. Mm-hmm. And to do that, you have to tell a story. Now, if you think the story of your life is so compelling to an investor that they'll put up their money, fine. I'm very suspicious of that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I think the story that an investor wants to be told is how this product is going to work in the world and how the product or the service that you're going to create works and will work. How much of that is autobiographical, I can't say. But there's a tendency, especially today, in people thinking that their life is more important than what they do. And I don't. But you put it in the world and you see what reaction you get. If you tell a story one way and you don't get a reaction, then you tell it another way and it does, then obviously what works.
Well, so Bob, my question though, let me redefine the question. I asked it the wrong way. People's attention spans are so short. Very few create
that premise is wrong to begin with.
I would disagree with you emphatically on that.
People's attention spans have not changed since we sat around the fire in caves. Your attention span is determined by your genetics, and the human genome hasn't changed. What has changed is people's interest spans. Their interest spans are shorter. People binge.
Well, Bob, true or false? You're splitting. My audience will think you're splitting hairs.
No, listen to me for a moment. People binge 5 or 6 or 8 hours of long-form television a night. What kind of attention span does that take? This notion that people don't have attention spans they used to is nonsense. What they don't have is interest spans. They will not politely listen to something that's boring them. And so you can hold people's interest, you can hold their attention as long as what you're telling them is captivating. That's the difference. You have to have their interest. And if you have their interest, you will have their attention.
I'm going to go back to my question, which is the following, Bob. I'm not going to try and split hairs around words that you use because you're way more educated there than I am. What I'm going to try and do is look at what's happening on a day-to-day basis. A company or a person like the Kardashians can launch a makeup brand and instantly have it be $1 billion company, whereas Avalon has spent decades trying to tell stories to capture attention. And these guys, where people pay attention to them in real time, not necessarily make time to go watch their story or read a book on their story or their life story. So my question is, how do you build these deep form stories in a way that can actually compete with following somebody in real time moments?
Well, I'm presuming that most of the people we're talking to are not Kardashians. They don't have that kind of exposure because of scandal and
well, the same can be said for cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is maybe a better example.
Yeah.
Nathan, I think, if you want to think about stories that have really moved business, one of the examples the classic example I think that we use is if you think about how Steve Jobs launched the Macintosh. It was with a short story in that famous 1984 commercial, the Super Bowl ad, that is now iconic. And one of the things that I think has made Apple such a beloved brand is that they've consistently used storytelling through their advertising primarily as a way to build empathy among their audience. All around the same kind of value pair, that the same idea that there's a rebel, that there's a creative that is breaking away from the norms or from conformity at the heart of their customer base and at the heart of their brand, of course. So I think Apple is a great example of where a story can be very powerful at building audience affinity. And there are a lot of other brands that have been brilliant at this. B2B, Adobe does a great job as a storyteller as well.
All of that being said, that those decades of storytelling can be broken real time when the new iPhone release doesn't operate as it should and social media takes over and people are being impulsive and reactive in the moment. What I'm trying to figure out and learn from you guys is, have you come up with a way to plant a 15-second, a 20-second, a minute-long kind of story as a hook to keep people over the long run, right? I don't know if it's still possible.
Oh, sure it is. There's a wonderful series of ads running right now for Bud Light that take the phrase "dilly dilly," right?
What
do they say, Bob?
Dilly dilly.
Okay.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's dilly dilly. Yeah.
And dilly dilly's become, it's just everywhere now. And these ads are terrific little 30-second stories that you grab attention by change. By things radically changing suddenly in front of you in the first second to the negative. You hit that negative floor to set up a positive ending. And in one or two turning points from the inciting incident on, you've got their attention, a couple turning points, you're holding the attention, and then you hit climax, yell dilly dilly, and they all go chasing after.
Bob, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a drink, right?
Yeah. Well, look, what are the choices? To make things simple here, what are the choices? How do you persuade people? You can do one of two things. You can brag and promise. We're the biggest, we're the best, and promise, we'll do this for you, we'll do that for you. You can brag and promise. What used to be called, benefits and features in biz ad school. You can brag and promise, or you can hook them and hold them with a story. Those are your only choices. Bragging and promising today, talk about limited attention spans, bragging and promising to young people today falls on deaf ears. They have heard all this crap before, and they're not impressed. So you got to hook them with something, a negative turning point that makes them wonder, how's this going to turn out? Hold them for a half a minute or a minute, and then pay it off with a terrific ending. And you've got them looking forward to buying your product. And so you only have those two choices.
Yep. Tom, we're running out of time. You were going to add something. Did you want to sneak something in there?
Yeah, Nathan, one of the things you mentioned earlier on is that a lot of companies have tried to use this approach and failed. And the reason they fail and the reason they lose their audience so quickly is because they don't do what Bob just mentioned, which is they have an event that sends things to the negative. Because marketers are so trained. It's in their DNA to go positive, 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 positive.
What do you mean by that? Give me a real example. When you say both said that, go to the negative.
Sure. So, for example, somebody falls out of love, or a company has a terrible quarter. Those are all, life turning to the negative. Some important value in life goes to its negative side. But if you don't go to the negative, then when you have a happy ending, it doesn't matter. Because if all you did was go along happy, 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 happy ending, who cares? I mean, there's nothing interesting about that. What Bob just pointed out that is so important and that most marketers miss is the idea that great stories are dynamic. They go negative, positive, negative, positive. And if you don't do that, you bore your audience in a heartbeat. And so Bob coined this phrase, negaphobia, to describe one of the primary challenges that marketers face. They refuse to acknowledge that there's any negative side of life. And if you don't acknowledge that, you can't tell a good story.
Guys, there you have it. I'm going to wrap up Tom with the famous 5-year direction. Bob, last question for you, though. Is that coffee or Bud Light in your coffee cup?
Oh, that's a wonderful cappuccino.
I just want to know how close to the dilly dilly we are. All right, Tom, let's wrap up here with...
Oh, that was great. That was wonderful.
Let's wrap up here with the famous 5, Tom. Number 1, what's the last business book you read?
The last business book I read is, Storynomics. I've been working on it for 2 years with Bob, and we just finished it.
Fair enough. Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
Howard Schultz, I think, is a fascinating guy, and I've been watching his leadership and in some ways trying to emulate what I do here at Skyword.
Does he run in 2020?
I hope so.
All right. Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building the business?
Other than our own Skyword platform, we do a ton of work with Marketo, and we found integrating with them has been a particularly powerful combination for us.
Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Not enough, maybe 5.
Okay, and what's your situation? Married, single, you have kids?
Single.
Okay.
And if you know anybody, please send it my way.
No kids that you know of?
No kids that I know
of. All right, and how old are you, Tom?
I'm 47.
All right, take us home. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
I wish my 20-year-old self knew that it was okay to fail and okay to admit you don't know what you don't know.
Guys, there you have it from Tom. Built a very successful SaaS company with services layered on top of it called Skyword, helping scale content marketing. They just raised a bunch of money, past 20 million in AR. They've teamed up with one of the greats, Bob. I tried to mess with Bob and he shot back. You don't want to mess with Bob. But Bob, Tom, thank you both for coming on and taking us to the top.
Thank you, Nick.